Now on Disability Matters, we're talking to Carol Brill, who is the chairperson of Usher Syndrome Ireland. Carol, you're very welcome to Disability Matters.
Thank you for having me along, John.
It's great to have you here. So you might tell us first the obvious question. What is Usher syndrome and what are the symptoms?
Okay, well, Usher syndrome it was in the media recently. So if the EastEnders fans, there would have been a storyline. I don't watch it, but I believe there was a storyline with Tiffany leaving Albert Square, I think it is, with a foster child called, I can't remember the foster child, but the
Yeah.
foster child had just been diagnosed with Usher syndrome. It is a rare genetic disease that affects both hearing and vision. So we have different types. Now, just for my type, I have type 2. So I have been wearing hearing aids from the age of 4. At the age of 11, I was having problems with my sight, and then my parents were told that I had retinitis pigmentosa,
Okay.
which is it basically Usher syndrome is retinitis pigmentosa with hearing loss. So it's a very, very devastating disease to have, because not only are you losing your vision, you're losing your hearing. And if you can imagine, if you're visually impaired, you tend to hear, in order to move around the world, to engage with the world. And if you are deaf, you tend to use your sight in order to lip read and to, navigate getting from A to B. But when you lose both senses, it is extremely challenging. And in some cases, for some people, they would have balance issues, because obviously if you can't see or you can't hear, you would struggle with balance. So that's why it's called a syndrome, because it has more than one symptom.
Right.
So at the moment, there's no treatment or cure, but there's a lot of research happening, and all we can do is just hope that it'll happen in our lifetime.
Can I ask you, is it full or partial, or in some cases both, sight loss and hearing loss?
Well, type 1, you're born profoundly deaf.
Okay.
And then in your teenage years, your vision starts to reduce. It starts off with night blindness, and then your field of vision starts to reduce down. In my case, I have moderate to severe loss from birth, and then my vision has now reduced. You would probably see your hands here beside your face. I don't. And a person has about 180 degrees of field of vision. I have about 2 or 3.
Wow. You must have a lot of experience, so in the development of Usher syndrome for you.
Yes, I'm a dab hand.
And what was that like? It must have been frightening.
It is. It always is, because like it is a very progressive disease, but it takes time. So you're
Okay.
constantly grieving for, that little bit of vision you lose every year. That little bit of independence. It's a very, very slow period to adapt to losing your hearing and your vision. And you develop skills along the way, so
Yeah.
but last year myself, I had a cochlear implant fitted because my hearing had drastically reduced in my left ear. So I'm still learning to hear the world again through my cochlear implant. And I suppose in the last year, because of, learning to hear the world again through my left ear, and
Yeah.
learning to get my balance back, because your balance can be affected by the surgery. And then with the sight loss, I actually in the last year started to feel the burden of my disease.
Oh.
Can
The positive is I only got out and started playing golf a couple of weeks
Good
ago.
for you.
can artificial intelligence be a help in people coping with the condition?
I'm not quite sure because there's a lot of fears around artificial intelligence, but I know it's certainly starting to be used in scientific research. Um, and it's starting to creep into our phones and everything. So I'm not a techie, so I wouldn't really be able to answer that question. But
Right.
AI it's starting now to become part of everyday life. I mean, you
Yeah.
just pick up the phone and there's the AI button hovering over the WhatsApp, and then you see it on the Zoom. You're seeing it everywhere now.
Yeah.
So I suppose it's just going to become a part of everyday life.
Yeah.
It's a condition that you're born with. Am I right?
Yes, it's genetic. Both parents are carriers, and then their offspring have a 1 in 4 chance of developing
Okay.
disease.
That's good to know, I have to say. I'm learning here because I never heard of Usher syndrome. And do you have any statistics for the amount of sufferers?
It is guesstimated, and I will use the
Okay.
word guesstimated, that we have around 250 people in Ireland. Because dual sensory loss is a term to describe
Yeah.
hearing and sight loss, or deaf blindness is another way of describing it. It's not recognized, or it is recognized by our UN Convention for Rights of People with Disability, but it's not implemented in our public health systems, or it's it requires, in terms of like the health sector, you need multidisciplinary teams. Like my audiologist does not talk to my ophthalmologist and vice versa. So I'm having to make the decisions for myself as to when I think it's best to go for a cochlear implant or go and get my eye test. There's nobody really managing the healthcare of a syndrome as such, and that's the same for other rare diseases that have multiple symptoms. So we don't have a health registry. Our national census, you tick your boxes. Are you visually impaired? Are you hearing impaired? So you tick those 2 boxes. So we've got to try and read through those statistics that are produced by the CSO and try and guesstimate. But in terms of Usher syndrome, we can only guesstimate that there's 250 because it's guesstimated again that there's around 400,000 people in the world with this rare disease.
Right. So that should be an area to advocate for teams talking to each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that something you do, no?
Well, I mean, I talk with everyone and anyone that will help to try and improve the quality of life for people with Usher syndrome. And I think also we have to live with the disease. Like, it's one thing to have hope and promote scientific research for treatments and cures, but it's also, we're in the here and now. So how do we live? How do we get from one end of the day to the next, and so basically I talk to everybody, and everybody sees me coming.
Yeah. And tell me this, do you think that the related teams don't talk to each other because they don't know enough about it?
No, I when you say related teams, what do you mean? Sorry.
I mean, you said somebody talks about your sight loss and another team talk about your hearing loss. And
Yeah. Well, I mean, you see, sometimes disability, I think the perception of disability, I think it's been fantastic that we've had so much disability awareness brought into school curriculums, but it goes beyond the wheelchair symbol. It goes beyond the person with, the cane, these symbols that signify disability, because, Usher syndrome can be invisible in the sense of, like, if somebody is visually and hearing impaired, but they're not using a white cane just yet because they still have enough field of vision to navigate. So it's invisible, so people don't realize, and they don't see, the hearing aids or the cochlear implants or anything like that. So I think, we are invisible in a sense. And so this is what my work is involved in, trying to get, more awareness about dual sensory loss, about deaf blindness, so that they can be more mindful, because like it's very easy, like you can receive this letter in Braille. They give the options, but in terms of people that don't have vision and sight, vision or hearing, um, that is a completely different level of communication requirement, and that gets a little bit forgotten about.
Does the condition disbar you from doing certain things?
Well, yeah, like I mean, for example, if you're completely deaf and completely blind, you are reliant on somebody to go with you to the bank, for example, to go to the shop, to go on public transport. So it's the availability of having that person, but also that person that's going to assist you has to be able to communicate through tactile sign language, because that is the mode of communication if you're completely deaf and blind. Thankfully, cochlear implants, allow you to hear to some extent. And I'm just trying to visualize, like if I would still need somebody to go with me, help me with my shopping and just the basic day-to-day living. And so I'm thankful that I can still hear and still see a little bit to some extent, but that's my independence at the moment. Where I'll be in about 5 years, 10 years time, I have no idea.
What about employment opportunities for people with the condition? What's the situation like with regard to that?
It would be very, very tough, because like, I mean, if if you just try to take the like the more, like, say, shop front kind of employment, where you're engaging with people, if you can't hear them and if you can't see them and they're presenting you with the goods they want to buy, and you're reduced vision and you're trying to see and all of that, so that would be a struggle. But if you have an employer that's willing to support that, that's great. But I think there's a lack of awareness. There's a fear around people who have this kind of disease,
Yes,
and this kind of disability, because they don't know how to interact. They don't know how to. They don't know enough. But we're the way I look at it is, we're much more. We're the same people as everybody else. Okay, we just have wonky eyes, wonky hearing. But we can still. I mean, I'm myself and my friend Deborah. We both run Usher Syndrome Ireland.
Yeah.
And we do it to the best of our ability. But employers wouldn't see that. But the thing about as well, I think we can get visually fatigued. We can, I think if we worked in a noisy background and doing a lot of Zoom conferences and stuff like that, that is, it is exhausting, because we're working so much harder to see and hear what's going on. So, an employer would need to be kind of saying, yeah, if you need a rest, go home, have a couple of hours, work from home and that kind of thing. It's down to attitudes, but the percentage is not known, but the percentage of people with Usher syndrome would be very low in terms of employment.
And tell me this now, if there's somebody out there listening who's just got a new diagnosis, what advice would you give?
Get in touch with us, because we will support you. We have, a peer groups for parents of that are just coming to terms of the child's diagnosis. we have just launched our coaching support program. It is not a counseling program because that's something that's outside of our financial remit. But we were lucky enough to get a grant last year to cover coaching sessions one-on-one. And this is to help people to find solutions in terms of like setting goals and how they're going to achieve them. And it can be anything from trying to secure a job or whatever it is they want to do to enhance their quality of life. You know, we always encourage to live in the moment, because sometimes if you're told that, you know, say for example, a young family received the diagnosis that their newborn has this condition, they automatically think, oh, the child is going to have to learn how to read Braille, you know, and they forget that the child is going to have their vision for quite a few years.
Yeah.
And you know, live in the moment. A couple of years ago, we had an event where we had, you know, we had sports to demonstrate, like archery, golf, tennis, you know, and these are all adaptive sports. So,
Right.
you know, we can live life as best as we can, and provided that it's in a supportive environment. And that's why I think awareness of Usher syndrome is critical, to create a supportive environment for people like us.
I always said organizations that do a peer support approach always get the best results.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, you know, I think we have the experience, we have the knowledge, we know what it's like to live with the condition, and we know what's needed and we know what's missing. And that's why, you know, I think there's such power in advocacy and awareness to try and just get the word out there. And I think the EastEnders storyline did a lot to boost the awareness, but yeah, we have a lot more to do.
That's great. Tell me this then about Usher Syndrome Ireland. When did that come on stream?
Well, it was, let's just say it was born out of a necessity to have as a center point. Like, I mean, there's wonderful organizations that have given out information about Usher syndrome,
Right.
but it was only focusing on either the sight or the hearing loss, you know. So we wanted something that was central and holistic. You know, and I think Deborah and myself just wanted this for a long time. You know, all of our lives, we've been through that whole process of not having that one center point where there's all information that's specifically about Usher syndrome. And at the start of COVID, we thought, well, let's do this. I mean, I think a lot of things were born during the COVID period, and so yeah, it's been a very small organization, but our work is expanding, our dreams are expanding, but it would be lovely if we're in that, you know, that is short term, that we have the cures, and then, you know, we can get on with living life to the full.
And tell me this, do you fundraise? And if you do, have you anything coming up?
Yes, well, we have myself and Deirdre, who's the director of our board. We're doing the Women's Mini Marathon.
Oh, good for you.
So we have an I Donate page on our website, usherireland.org. And we would be very, very appreciative of donations. I will add that our organization is completely voluntary. We're very, let's just say, we don't like to spend money unless it's for the benefit of the organization. We don't. We're good at budgeting. We're mean.
You're female.
We nevertheless would love to fund more research. We were lucky to co-fund a research project a couple of years ago, and that's still ongoing, and it's looking very positive that will contribute in terms of improving the lives of Usher syndrome patients.
And tell me, how can someone get in touch if they want to?
Well, we have a contact form on our website. It's usherireland.org, or you can drop us an email, which is contact at usherireland.org.
We're coming right to the end of our time talking to you. You'd be glad to know. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we go?
I think, you know, we're in a world there's a lot of stuff, nasty stuff going on out there, and I think the important thing is just to be kind and be patient. If you see somebody struggling or falling over, don't just assume they're drunk. There could be another underlying cause. You know, I think we forget about being compassionate and having a different perspective on things, instead of just jumping the gun and thinking, oh, they're drunk or they're ignorant because they didn't listen to me, they ignored me. You know, just to be aware that somebody could be visually impaired, somebody could be hearing impaired, or anything else, just to be kind.
It's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. It's an absolute information fest for us because we've never heard of Usher syndrome. So we're very happy to have you here and have you talk about it in such depth.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for coming on to Disability Matters.
Cheers.
Thank
John.
you.
Thank you.
Take care.